It's finally fall, so throw on your flannels, light your scented candles, do whatever it is you like to do. It's time to read some mystery novels. Before we get started, my name is Marcello. I talk about books mostly so far, and I would really appreciate if you hit the like and subscribe button. I rarely ask, but we recently crossed the threshold into 1,000 subs, and I would like to make enough money from this channel where I can take my family out to eat like once a month. With all that aside, you know the deal. We've done these lists before, and we're doing another one. Here are 6 mystery books that I enjoyed quite a bit recently, and that would probably be pretty cozy to read in front of a fire this spooky season, now that we're officially in it. Some of these are mystery thrillers, but as usual, I will leave the deeper genre clarification to you experts in the comments. All of these books are page turners, and none of them will do you wrong. So let's go. Alright, first book on the list, The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. I've talked about Turton before. He's one of my favorite authors. If you've seen my previous mystery recommendations video, you know that I believe he is a critical voice in suspense fiction right now. All of his books are super innovative and provide a fresh approach to the genre in one way or another, and this one is no exception. Here is your premise. So there's an island that exists in some post-apocalyptic future universe. Beyond the island is a fog that destroys all that it touches. On the island live 122 villagers and 3 scientists. The scientists make the rules, the villagers obey the rules, they live off the land, and everyone is happy. Enough. Until one day when one of the scientists is brutally murdered. The murder triggers something that makes the fog start closing in on the island, and the villagers must solve the murder in order to stop the fog and save what's left of the world. But there is a twist. None of them can recall the events of the night in question, including, presumably, the murderer. Stu Turton creates some really excellent premises, and this one was no exception. I was instantly hooked by this book. I finished it in a single day. Turton does something interesting with the narrative structure of this book. Skip ahead 60 seconds if you don't want to hear this light spoiler. It is revealed a few pages into the book, so it's not a heavy spoiler, but it is one, so skip now. So the book is told in what seems like third person, but it's actually first person. There's like a sentient AI that has access to most of the characters' thoughts and feelings, and this is the narrator of the story. And the result is that most of the time the book reads like it's in third person, but occasionally you get a random line or two in first person from the AI narrator, often giving like an opinion of some sort. It's a very interesting way of telling a story, and one that I have not seen before. It didn't like rock my world or anything, but I always appreciate innovation in storytelling, so I have to thank Turton for this one. Overall, if you find yourself tired of the tropes and want to read something fresh and inventive, Turton is your guy. This book is not my favorite of his, so if you haven't read 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle or Devil in the Dark Water, those recommendations still stand. If you have, this is definitely another Turton book, and it is excellent. Next up, we have The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels by Janice Hallett. I haven't talked about Janice Hallett before because I only recently started reading her books like a year ago, but she has quickly catapulted up to the top of my favorite modern authors. She writes epistolary novels, which are basically like the literary equivalent of found footage films, in case you didn't know. Every single book that she's written is good and worth picking up. I'll say that right up front. The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels is my favorite of her works. It follows a true crime author and journalist as she attempts to solve a decades-old mystery surrounding the abduction of a child and a murder that happened at the same time. This description alone does not do the book any sense of justice. The book's an absolute head trip. I couldn't put it down. It took me 2 nights of very little sleep to finish it. The mystery is a bit convoluted, so I recommend taking your time with this one, but as a reward, you will receive one of my favorite payoffs in a mystery novel to date. I loved this book. Janice Hallett has a knack for making it seem like she's written herself into like a very weird corner and then somehow resolving everything with a clever solution. And I will say no more about this one. Janice Hallett also just released a book called The Examiner, which I will mention as another option as an entry point to her work. It is a murder mystery told through the intranet chat logs of a graduate student group. There is also The Appeal, which is told through emails between the cast of a play and which is also excellent. Basically, if these sound interesting to you, I would start with any one of her books other than the Twyford Code, which I personally enjoyed a lot, but which was definitely on the weirder side of things. If you like very weird books, start with the Twyford Code. All of her books are phenomenal. I should do a video on just Janice Hallett. Next, I would like to recommend The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. The premise of this book is basically, what if, during the Great British Bake Off, someone started murdering the contestants? This was a fun enough twist on the traditional closed circle mystery for me to give this book a shot, and I am glad that I did. The writing here is pretty good. I found the book to be very readable. It's told through multiple perspectives, each of which has a pretty distinct voice, and none of which feel too forced. I will add that the audiobook narration of this was also pretty good. I tend to switch back and forth between audio and print when reading a book because of the kids. Anyway, the mystery here is fair play, and while it isn't the most complex that I've ever read, the characters and setting are strong enough, the pacing is good enough, and the plot moves along quickly enough that at no point does it feel boring or predictable. I was able to figure this one out, which doesn't happen every day, but it did not detract from my enjoyment of the book. This is probably the most fun book on this list, as well as the most accessible, like easiest to read book. So if you are just looking for an engaging book to read on vacation or whatever, this one will fit the bill. And you might even want to buy a copy afterwards, because it is very charming and it's worth recommending. Next up, we have The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose. I've talked about The Maid before. It is one of my favorite books in recent memory, following Molly the maid as she finds her place in the world, figures out who she is and what she wants out of life, and also solves a murder. It was one of my most charming books that I'd ever read when I picked it up, and it worked so well as a standalone novel that when I heard that there was going to be a sequel, I had some trepidation. I pre-ordered the book anyway because I enjoyed the first one so much, but I really didn't see how the world could be elaborated on. The story seemed to wrap up really nicely after the first one. However, without spoiling anything, I will say that I was completely wrong to have any hesitation whatsoever. This book is a worthy sequel that bears all of the charm and readability of its predecessor. For what it's worth, you do not, strictly speaking, need to even read The Maid to enjoy this book, but you will enjoy it much more if you do, so read The Maid first. The Maid is fantastic. This book is fantastic. Read both of them. The plot of this sequel is fairly straightforward. A famous mystery author is delivering a speech at the hotel that Molly works at when he drops dead. There is a murder investigation, which Molly inevitably finds herself at the center of. This book also explores Molly's backstory quite a bit, and that of her grandmother, as well as provides some new insights on recurring characters from the first book. We even get some hints on how the series will continue and what is in store for Molly in the future. Overall, my impression while reading this book was basically just like reading The Maid again, which I did not think would be possible given the sheer charm and warmth of that first book. I recommend this whole series. Nita Prose has a Christmas-themed sequel coming out this holiday season as well. I'm holding off on reading it, but I will be reading it within the next month. It just came out. These are great books to pick up, and if you don't read mystery novels but are watching this for some reason, this is a great entry point for the whole genre. They're wonderful. Next on the list, Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. Someone recommended this to me in the comments section of a past video. I actually had read it before, but it just wasn't quite as high on my list of favorite novels as those 5. However, it's high enough to be on this list. Basically, this is another meta mystery, one of my favorite ways to explore the mystery genre. In this one, the main character is like a scholar of mystery novels. He consults and edits and lectures about what makes whodunits successful. As a result of this, there is an ongoing sort of tongue-in-cheek tone throughout the book that some people may like. Personally, I found it a little distracting, but it didn't ruin the book for me by any stretch of the imagination, and that is the only negative that I have to speak of. The book itself was excellent. The mystery and its resolution are pretty much perfectly executed. The book takes place over a long weekend in a snowed-in ski resort, and the narrative changes between present-day first person and flashbacks of the protagonist's memories, including memories with each of the characters that he's stuck in this ski resort with. The pacing is really good in this book. Once I started it, it was an absolute breeze to get through. Now, I did talk a little bit disparagingly about the narrative style here, but I do want to recommend the sequel of this book as well, Everyone on This Train is a Suspect. It's a similar format, same protagonist. A group of authors are taking part in some sort of mobile book conference on a cross-country train. The train's passenger list provides our closed circle of suspects. Surprise, surprise, someone murders someone, and there is an investigation. This one was excellent. This is one of the best mysteries that I read last year. I liked it more than I liked the first one. I think this is because the tone was a little bit more palatable for me. But more than that, due to the setting being a conference of murder mystery authors, there was a lot of sort of tongue-in-cheek commentary on the genre as a whole, specifically the publishing and celebrity aspect of it, and I found this all very interesting to read and truly appreciated some of the ideas that Stevenson seems to be putting out there. I recommend both of these books as they are both pretty quick and easy reads. You don't need to read the first book to enjoy the second, but if you like the genre, you should read them both. Don't take my personal criticism of the tone of the first novel to mean that you will not like it. This is me being very nitpicky. It was an excellent book. All right, last and maybe least, we're going to talk about The Couple Next Door by Sherry LaPena. This book sent me on a Sherry LaPena kick, and unfortunately, I liked every single book of hers less than the one that I read prior, so The Couple Next Door wound up being a clear highlight for me. Sherry LaPena is a little bit more of a, New York Times bestseller, thriller, psychological thriller author, and her books all have that sort of twisty thriller feel to them, which is not everyone's cup of tea, and which I'm trying to avoid on this list, frankly. However, The Couple Next Door was a fun and compelling read, good enough for a spot on this list. It also had a mystery that was fairly easy to figure out, but whether predictability necessarily equals fair play is a discussion for another video. In either case, there is a mystery here, you can probably solve it, so I'm putting the book on the list. I liked reading it, it was fun. It's not high literature, but it was pretty good. The plot involves a young couple who leave their infant child at home in her crib while they go next door for dinner with their neighbors. At some point in the night, the child is kidnapped. The book follows the ensuing investigation, both from the perspectives of the infant's parents, individually, and the detectives assigned to the case. LaPeña's prose isn't remarkable, and her characters are a little bit one-dimensional, but the plot, like I said, is just fun. It moves right along, it keeps you engaged. This isn't high literature, but it is a solid book to kill an evening or two with. If you like it and feel compelled to check out LaPeña's other works, I thought One Big Happy Family was pretty good, and I thought everything else was pretty schlocky. However, if you are in the market for schlock, or what I like to call tasty trash, Sherry LaPeña is perfect. You can read all of her books, they're all very readable, they're all very entertaining. And that is our list. Thank you guys for clicking on this video. As usual, please leave any of your recommendations or feedback below, and like and subscribe for more lists like this. Next video is going to be an Animorphs one. We're trying to split the time and diversify and make sure we please everyone here. So if you're an Animorphs fan and you watched this one all the way through, thank you also very much, and don't worry, stuff for you coming out soon. Thank you.